I'm Tracie Griffith-Tso. I'm the brush painting teacher. I teach Chinese brush painting with the Reston Community Center since 2008. And I'm here to show a combination of techniques to do something very similar to a painting here. It blends the Japanese marbling techniques, the black lines in this painting, and then my Chinese brush painted crabs, along with a nice green watercolor wash. But this is a very simple thing you can do at home with construction paper and India inks. A pan full of water, about a half an inch of water, just regular tap water, nothing fancy. I use tempera paint, a poster paint. You can also use watercolors, anything that is handy and at home. It doesn't need to be waterproof. It's water soluble. Even diluted acrylics will do, just to add a little color. The ink, all kinds of inks will work for this. This is a Speedball India ink. This is another India ink. This is the Chinese ink I use for brush painting here at the community center, if you happen to have some of that around. It needs to be oil-based so it floats on top of the water. Calligraphy ink also works well. And this is just diluted tempera, so I want it diluted to a watercolor consistency. Some brushes, round brushes with points, and a brush to do a wash with. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It can be a house painting brush from your garage. And this is a couple of drops of dish soap with some water. And well, you'll see how I'll use that. But just a couple of drops dish soap, water, any type of dish soap will do. And then this is just plain water to wash my brush. Now a spray bottle full of water is handy. Also newspaper cut into strips, and then just pages of newspaper is also handy because we're dealing with a lot of wet stuff. Okay, so we have our pan of water with 1/2 inch of water in it, just regular water. And just to make sure that we're dealing with surface tension here, and we want to float the ink on top of the water. Suminagashi means literally floating ink in Japanese. I'm just going to go ahead and take a strip of newspaper and run it on the top of the water. That's to make sure that all the dust and whatever things might have been on there are not there anymore if they were there. And then what you want to do is you want to have one brush with ink in it, and then the other brush you dip in the water with a couple drops of dish soap. This one will be clear, and when I print on this paper, since it's white, this will come out white. So the clear would come out white because I'm doing it on a white background. This is going to be black, what I have in my right hand. So when you first start and you put it down, you might not see the ink. There, we're starting to see it. And I'm just pressing the tip, tapping the tip into the water and doing rings. And the more of the dish soap liquid you put in, the more it resists and adds space. So you can add space anywhere. So here's my dish soap brush. See how that reacts? So everything's floating on the water here. And we're just suspending it, and it's all tension. And the Japanese masters used to do this, and it was meditative. And they would do backgrounds, and it'd be decorative, and it was very soothing. And then they would do poetry and calligraphy on top of it. So I'm just doing concentric rings, sort of like a piece of wood, a log. But you can do all kinds of things. You can start more inside this. You can take a popsicle stick and start moving the ink around to create patterns and swirls. The Japanese masters would blow on it and move it around a little bit to get different permutations. You can use a fan on it to move it around. And then when you think that you've got something you like, always have a dry piece of paper because it will not work if you have a wet surface. And you go ahead and submerge this. I'm just going to do a portion of this, and then it'll come out as marbled. Okay? And I can go ahead and marble these edges here since they're still dry. If you want to leave an area blank, if you're going to put an animal or something in it, just spritz it down with a spritz bottle and the marbling will not stick to it. I'm just going to go ahead and take a strip of newspaper and run it on the top of the water. That's to make sure that all the dust and whatever things might have been on there are not there anymore. Now I'm going to finish up that composition and put a little more ink in the corner so it frames the composition well. So I'm going to move this over to the corner. Blowing on it. Be careful doing that in COVID times. Then you can, manipulate it. Not just good. Now it's only going to adhere to the dry spots, so I'm going to put this down in there. And it'll come out only on the dry spots. So there it is again. So you've got some room in the center to do some crab-like compositions. This is construction paper. I've heard of people doing it on copy paper, rice paper for sure, any sort of paper that absorbs well. It won't work on a slick paper. And this is ink, so it will be permanent. I'm going to go ahead and do wash over it, and nothing will happen to the ink. So what I'm doing here is I'm kind of outlining where I want my wash to go with my brush. This is plain water, kind of like a border. And usually that helps with, if you're doing a wash, it'll help contain the color. And this is just diluted poster paint, tempera paint, and I like to do a little bit more variation, so I'm going to leave some dry spots to put in some blue and just kind of dab it on your wash. This wash didn't come out as clear as dark as some of them, but it gives the idea of water. So I'm using green now, diluted green. You can use watercolor, whatever you want. The black ink is permanent, so when you start putting watercolor or water-based over the marbling, it will not in any way affect the marbling. So that's what's nice. You can have that and go ahead and be creative with your colors and not affect the marbling effect. I'm leaving some room here to paint crabs in. Okay, so I'm adding some highlights in, and I think that looks colorful and nice. Beachy, summery, which is what we're going for. If you ever feel like the construction paper is buckling and the dry parts are buckling versus the wet parts, just go ahead and use the spritz bottle and it'll flatten itself out, and then, you know, you would be able to have, when it's dry, it'll be a flat piece. So I've just put the color on, real soft color. You could be creative with anything you like. I just used blue and green here. This is a dry piece of paper that I've done the wash on, and I've done the suminagashi marbling on. And so now we're going to do the crab. And this is our friendly Chesapeake blue crab. So the crab, a couple different components when I paint a crab. The carapace, which is the body part of the crab. I do three strokes there. We count the legs to make sure we got the right number of legs. There's 4 legs, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have the claws here. So we make sure there's 4 legs on each side, make sure there's 2 claws on each side. Now this is a female because she has the little red on the tips of her claws. So if you see a blue crab and it has red on the tips of the claws, just think she has nail polish. That's a female, okay? And the males would just be blue. So when I'm painting these, I start with the body of the crab, and then I do the legs, and then I do the pinchers, and we put eyes in. But I think there's enough room for 2 crabs in this, and I'm going to be using the inks, or the black ink, excuse me. And this is, once again, poster paint. I'll dilute the poster paint and mix it in with the inks. I'll be doing something called double loading my brush, where I'll put 2 colors in at the same time. But it's fun. You'll never know what you're going to get. So let's get started. So what I'm doing here is I have loaded my brush with 2 different colors. I'm using a black ink, and then I'm tipping it with some blue because these are blue crabs, so I want a hint of blue in here. And I'm going to start with the body. So these are going to be, I'm using the biggest brush I have, and just a round brush would be fine. I'm doing 3 strokes using the side of my brush here. So I'm going to do 1 crab here, and then do another crab facing it. I might as well put the other crab in. And 3 strokes all melding together. And then if you look at the legs of the crab, they're done in 3 different sections. When you're eating a blue crab, you have the little pointer at the end that you pick all the crab meat out. That's 1 section, and then there's 2 more, right? So you're going to be looking at your crabs closely at your next crab feast, I'm sure. So you start at the body, you put pressure on the brush, you're pulling up 1, 2, and you release 3. And you have to do that again. Pressure. This one's awful dark, so I'm going to test my color here, and I'll go again. And 1 more. And then you get to do the other side. This might feel a little awkward if you're a right-handed person to go on the other side, because it is on the left-handed side of the spectrum here as far as the stroking. You can feel free to rotate your paper if that becomes easier. I'm used to doing stroking on both sides, so it's not going to bother me. And here is its friend or enemy, frenemy here. And like I said, go ahead and rotate however comfortable you are, whichever angle you're comfortable at. And you can just keep adding hints of blue because they are hued with blue. You want that to blend in. Okay, so we have 8 legs on each crab, which is what we're going for. And then we have the pinchers. So the pinchers will be situated right at the end of the carapace of the crab, the body of the crab. So I'll go ahead and put the start of the pinchers in here to this crab. And then I'm going to go ahead, because I really like the female crab's bright colored claws. I'm going to go ahead and do the orange and the red. So I've double loaded the brush. And you have the nice bright tip. And so that'll just work into the nook there. And I'll go ahead and put the claws on the other crab. And it looks like they're having I like my animals all to interact. It looks like they're having a dialogue. And then you want to just dot your eyes in here. And you dot the eyes between the first stroke and the second stroke, and then between the second stroke and the third stroke. So they're off to the sides. And I like to put a little hint of a mouth. And there you are. So here's the final painting. And crabs are a good luck symbol in Chinese. The word for crab sounds like the word for peace or harmony. So they're a very good luck symbol. And the way we finish off a Chinese painting is we put a red seal, which is our name seal, and then calligraphy with our name in it. So that's what I have on the finished painting. But you can improvise, and if you want to learn more, please go to RustonCommunityCenter.com.